Hey everyone, we have Keola on today to talk to us a little bit about raising private money and whether it's your deals or someone else's and really where to find these private money lenders. Thanks for coming on, Keola.
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me. I just really appreciate somebody like you in the space that's going out there, creating great value, creating content for others to listen and learn from you, and kind of understand your journey and all things that you have going on, specifically as you focus on co-living and kind of the success that you've seen personally and inviting others like myself to come and share their platform.
Yeah, definitely. And before we really get into our topic today, tell my audience a little bit about you and what you're doing in the space.
Yeah, you bet. So I'm originally born and raised in Hawaii, hence the name, Keola. Lived there, finished college, moved up to what we call the mainland, or the United States per se. Currently reside in Utah with my family. I used to be in the fitness space for 25 years. I ran and helped build up a company from 2 locations to 25 to 55 locations before exiting last year. And so I was really in that corporate world for the past 25 years, really climbing the ladder, part of their C-suite team. And really, at that time, I wanted to find something that could give me a little bit more freedom of time to spend more with my family. After just at the grind for so many years, as my kids got older, wanted to find something that I could find time with them. And a friend introduced me into the real estate space, and I entered the space really looking at private money lending and in that space for the last year. And so over the past year, I've been really heavily focused on private money lending from short-term to long-term lending and networking with people and trying to help others deploy their capital into safe and secure deals.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, I think that's really where we connected. We connected in a couple groups and we're doing similar things and wanted to talk about it. I mean, that's awesome, and I can't imagine. I've never been in the corporate life, so I can't imagine switching over from, that grind to this is still a grind. And I don't know about you, but I feel like sometimes doing this is more intensive and more hours that you're, putting into something at times. So
I would have to agree with that, Paul. And the other caveat to that, right? The other component that a lot of people don't think about is it's all on you,
yeah,
right? As an entrepreneur, like it's all on you, right?
yeah,
But at the same time, so is a reward,
hmm
right? Where instead of trying to raise millions for somebody else and have them have that company grow, which I always want people to succeed, all the time, energy, effort you put into it now is your baby, right? And so
yeah.
what you put in is what you get out, right? I'm a huge proponent of if this, then that, right? You can't give 40% and expect 100%. You have to be able to give equal amounts, if not more, because now it's your baby.
Yeah. So I really wanted to bring a whole different perspective to this channel that we really haven't talked about. I've, touched on house hacking, co-living, and what to do as a private money lender and what to look for. But let's talk about how to find the private money lenders or how to, find the private money lenders and the good borrowers to bring them together into a deal. So that's really
Great.
what you're here for today.
Yeah, I'd love to chat about that a little bit more with you. Absolutely.
Awesome. So let's go from the start. What are we starting with when we're out there trying to really intentionally find a private money lender? Let's go from there.
Yeah, I would say to that point, there's power in intentional networking, right? And in really helping you and your listeners understand that you want to build relationships that lead to deals, right? And so a lot of people ask me like, well, what does a private money lender look like? And I always say to them, well, look in the mirror. Everybody and anybody can be a private money lender. That's a great thing about private money lending, right? Is that anybody can be a private money lender. And so the places that you can find them is it's really about if you're willing to open your mouth. If you're willing to open your mouth and talk about lending, talk about what you do or your business or the deal that you have. Your Uber driver is a potential lender. The cashier is a potential lender. Uh, People at your church, people at the park, everybody is a potential lender. And so I compare it to a lot of people hesitate, like, well, they people disqualify rather than pre-qualify. And what I mean by that, Paul, is most people will look at others that they come across and every reason why that person couldn't be a lender. Well, that person can't qualify for a lender because look at the flip-flops he has on, or that person can't be a lender because look at the job he currently has right now, right? And so people unfortunately disqualify rather than saying, hey, let me get to know this person. Let me identify what their life is and what they have going on in their life and get to know them individually and qualify them to be a potential lender on a deal that I have. And so I would say number one is don't disqualify, look to pre-qualify. Right. When I was in the gym industry and I ran our sales teams, I'd always tell people that it, people are interested in fitness. It doesn't matter if they are flipping the burger or if they own the burger joint, right? Each person has a different interest of fitness. And so we got to do the same thing. We got to find out what is their interest in lending, not what their job is right now or what their role is in society that disqualifies them. We want to pre-qualify everybody.
No, definitely. I like that because you're talking about I mean, you just got to open your mouth. One, you got to talk about what you're doing, and yeah, you're asking questions, but I don't know about you, but a lot of my private money lenders came from just me talking about things rather than me saying, "Hey, would you lend me money?" So,
Yeah, I've never been successful, right, Paul, in getting people to lend with me by just hitting them between the eyes with, "I need your money."
yep, yeah.
Right? I do believe that there has to be a bit of romance, right, and getting to know you in dating rather than just trying to go for the close immediately.
Yeah, and then even that say we go through this and we find a couple people that are interested by, just putting yourself out there, talking to multiple people about this, and I would say intentionally talking to certain people about this. That's what you're getting at, right? Like you're really trying to bring those people in as a private money lender, but you're not directly going to them and asking them, "Hey, will you be a private money lender?" Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And just to that point, right, about being intentional, like there, you have to be able to open your mouth and talk to everybody. Absolutely, right? And pre-qualify rather than disqualify. But the second thing to this point about being intentional in your networking is you also have to put yourself in the right spaces,
Mhm.
right? And in the right rooms that these discussions happen naturally, right? Whether that's in a real estate group, whether that's in mentorships, whether it's at live events or at meetups that are about real estate or investing, you want to put yourself into those situations and in those events to find the right people, right? And that's better than just a shotgun approach. You're really taking a sniper rifle out and being intentional. And the more intentional you are of where you're putting yourself, the more success you'll have at getting the funds or acquiring the type of lenders for the deals that you're looking to acquire.
Yes, completely agree with that. Let's jump into talking about specializing because you said this too. You really want to figure out what you're trying to raise money for, right? And once you find the lender, you got to be able to decipher what lenders are good fits for what type of deals.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the challenges a lot of people face is they try to go in capital raise just to try and get X amount of money. Like, all right, I'm going to try and talk to everybody and build up a wheelhouse or a base of capital of $5 million, but they don't actually have a deal that that capital can be associated with or that they can fund. And so there is a need as people capital raise for a specific purpose, right? Because it's one thing to just say, hey, can you lend me money? Well, yeah, what am I lending you money for?
Hmm.
And not a lot of people spend enough time actually going and getting a great deal because if you have a great deal, the money follows, right? And a lot of times people aren't narrowing down what they're trying to raise for, and they're not narrowing down and really being a professional and an expert in the deal structure that they can very professionally and educated explain deals simply so people understand how is their money going to be safe and secure. And so as you look at trying to raise capital or try to be a connector or try to find funds for deals, really ensure that you understand your deal and you're able to walk yourself through the detail of why this deal makes sense for anybody to invest in. What are the benefits of those deals? And what is the security that you're willing to offer? And then have that ready to go to present when you find those people that have capital, right? Like they have to match each other.
Yeah, and what you just described there is what would be commonly stated in our industry as a pitch deck, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Put all the information that's valuable to the deal and why somebody, should lend on this deal in front of them. Don't try to make them chase it down for you. You don't if they're coming back with 20 questions, you probably didn't do that great of a job explaining the deal to someone, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
and just to that point, right? Add to that, right, Paul? As you know, because I seen you do this before, is you also want to be able to respond in a timely manner,
Hmm.
right? You may not have the answer that they need right now, but it also doesn't mean you wait weeks before you provide that answer to them, right? It has to be responsive, it has to be quick, and you want to be known as that person that is the go-to person, highly communicative, easy to talk to, and authentic, right? And when you look to raise capital, if you have to be yourself to everybody, right? Yes, there's a matter of mirroring somebody else that you're talking to, but what's going to set you apart from anybody else is really you, right? You're a unique individual, and so your style, your approach, the way you talk to people, all relate to how much capital you'll be able to raise.
Yeah. So whether you're raising money for your project or connecting, and by connecting, it's very loose. That's a very loose term.
Right.
This is my perspective, and I'm really curious on your perspective on it. I honestly think the new person should not be out there connecting. It doesn't matter if you have every good intention in the world, you do not properly know how to protect somebody else in a deal. So, as much as the person lending should be the one underwriting their own deal, um, you should be able to help them through that as well. Because a lot of these private money lenders, and this is where I'm going to bring you into this next topic, is you kind of have to teach some of these private money lenders what they do need for protection, right?
Absolutely. And just to your point, right? If you're new into the space or new into quote unquote connecting, it's definitely beneficial to team up with somebody,
There it
right?
is.
Team up with somebody that can help you along the way, right? Like everybody needs a mentor or a teacher. I mean, I share this with people all the time. All of us, most of us have driver's license now, right? But none of us ever just got behind the wheel, turned on the car, and jumped on the road, right? All of us had to learn from somebody by first watching them do it, sitting by their side, having them explain what's done and how to drive before we actually got behind the wheel. And even then, right, Paul, just because we got behind the wheel doesn't mean we immediately turned on the car and off we went. It meant that we turned on the car, kind of stumbled our way through it, drove a little slow. We might have hit things along the way, but we had somebody next to us that could guide us through the entire process to ensure that, at the end of the day, we didn't kill ourselves, right? And as you get behind that driver's seat, as you learn from somebody, they help mentor you in this process. The more you do it, the better you get. And before you know it, you're driving with the window down, you're driving with one hand out the driver's side, one hand on the steering wheel, and you're comfortable, and it becomes something that is so easy to do, you don't have to think about it. But until you get to that level, you definitely want to have somebody that can teach you. You definitely want to take reps, get behind the wheel, take those driving courses, make sure that you put the time in to learn before putting somebody else in the car with you.
Yeah, and just to stay on the same driving analogy, and you're talking about reps, doing multiple deals. It's not like you're teaming up with somebody and having to take a share of the profits or possibly do a couple deals for free just to prove that you have value, because it is all about value when you're joining a team. You have to be able to bring value to that team, right? Reps and reps and reps are great, and if deals are going awesome with no problem, well, you're probably doing some good upfront work as well. But when something goes bad, that's when you really need to be on that team because you need a lot of help and a lot of resources to figure out how to keep your lender's money safe or get it back for them, right?
Yeah, and just to that point, right? Like you don't know how good you are until times get tough,
Mm-hmm.
right? And too many that I've seen in the past, they get going in the space, they bring people's money to deals, they connect on it, and once things don't go according to plan, they're stuck, they're frozen, and they don't know how to properly have the next communication to move the deal and help progress it forward. And so, to your point, teaming up, working with others who have gone through that, have experienced those bumps and bruises along the way, that's so vital.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm talking about it from experience. So, like, I was a one man team, and I was lending with my own money first and something happened and I really did think I knew what to do. And yeah, in the book steps I understood, but the actually putting those into action looks a lot different and could be a lot more costly as well. So,
Yeah, I love that. And what I would share too, right, Paul, in regards to networking and connecting, like is finding those right people, right? That you can either join their team, team up with, or get mentored by, right? And when I first joined, that's what I did, right? And I focus on uh like I said, being very strategic in who I want to align myself with.
mhm,
And so I would give these three recommendations if you're in that space right now and you're wanting to do the exact same thing is number one, look for people that are in the space that are active, that are out there, right? That you can see, right? But secondly, I would also say look at those people who others are talking about them more than they're talking about themselves. Because the challenge a lot of people who are just getting started face is they think that exposure means experience. And that's not always the case,
mhm.
right? And so you want to look for those that are active and out there and doing good things. You want to look for those that are providing value in those spaces. But the third thing is you want to look for people that others are talking about them, right? That there's referrals to them. That it's not just them talking about themselves, but others are actually referring and sharing how good they did with them and how they brought them along. And if you can do those three things as you are intentional in your networking, not only will you find great people that can either mentor or help you along the journey, but you'll also find good lenders, right? That
Yeah.
are able to bring capital when needed, able to communicate when needed, and have a system and a structure that is similar to yours.
Yeah, and that's whether you're looking for money for your own deals or you're looking to put money together for someone else's deal.
Mhm.
Now, when you find that person that you're targeting to jump on their team or hope to get on their team, how would you approach them in order to bring value to them, right? Because you're not just going to be able to jump on a team and be like, hey, I'm new. Let me help, let me jump on a team with you. So,
Yeah, I would say that's a great question. And so many people ask me this, like, how do you bring value or how do you get yourself seen? First off, go where they're at, right? The worst thing you could ever do is just send a Facebook request and that's it. Like, well, I friended them on Facebook and they never reached back out to me. Like that is not a method for connecting,
mhm,
right? I would say at bare minimum, send them a Facebook request, send them a message, but also understand through what they're doing, where they're spending their time, right? And see what are their interests. Like, are they focused on co-living, like Paul, right? Like you are, right? And if you focus on co-living, then I would say educate yourself a little bit on that and understand what are their needs and approach them with being inquisitive, right? Like if we're to run into each other at a meetup and I knew that you had deals that needed funding because I did a little bit of my own research and due diligence on you with social media, then I could say, hey, Paul, I noticed that you're really big on the co-living space. Tell me a little bit about that. What are you doing with that? Like, where do you see it going? What are the biggest bottlenecks that you have, right? So be inquisitive with the person to understand what are their needs. And as you identify that, take a look at what you can bring to the table. And most people don't realize that they do bring value. And what people bring is number one, can you bring time?
mhm.
Right? I can bring time to you, Paul, to help offload whatever it is that may be tasks that I can take off your plate. I've got time to go do that for you. Right. And people don't realize that time is very important and it's a key resource. The second thing that people don't realize that they can bring to the table is experience, right? Look at what you bring as far as your experiences, right? For me, I've got 22 years of operating high functioning teams, right? I can bring a lot of discussions about leadership development or overcoming conflict or looking at processes and systems, right? What are the things that you bring from your own personal experiences that can support somebody in their journey? The third piece that people can bring is capital, right? Like, do you have money you can bring or deploy into their deals? Great. And the fourth thing is resources. I might not be able to bring my own capital to a deal, but who do I know that I can bring capital to your deals from? Right. And so those four things, whether it's time, uh, experience, capital, or resources, those are four keys that somebody can bring to provide more value to someone else.
Yeah, definitely. So that from what I'm getting out of what you just said is that initial talk when you do finally get in front of somebody that you are targeting that you're hoping you have a chance to work with, talk to them and figure out where their bottlenecks are so you know what their weak points are, what they're trying to fix, what they need in their current business. And either hopefully you have one of those things or figure out how to skill up to get to one of those things that you can bring to help that person out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you don't need to know every single part of the business to help somebody. You need to be really good at one part that they're struggling with, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And even if like, for me, I'm a high energy person. I believe that brings a lot of value to teams. Sometimes that might be it. Hey Paul, I love what you're doing and I love to jump on calls with you to listen in with your team, how you talk to them and kind of assess how I can help champion your message forward with them as well. Right. And so there's a lot of different ways that people can lean into their strengths to help support others. I think sometimes it's human nature for us to always see what our weaknesses are and not identify our strengths. And if we can lead with our strengths with others, then there's great value there.
Yeah. No, I like it. And this is a lot to take in for somebody new and really like digging through because so many people, and we see it all the time, you get the shotgun approach where people just sending you Facebook messages left and right, or not even sending you a Facebook message and just sending you a friend request. And that's not the right way to get in front of somebody. You actually have to, and if they don't respond to a message the first time, give it a week or so and message them again.
Yeah.
I mean, showing you're persistent, showing that you're trying to get in front of someone that could be the way that you're actually going to get a response. If you tried one time, it's usually not your best. You're usually not going to have too much success just trying one time with something. So,
Yeah, and I'll share kind of like my journey, right? Like when I first joined a mentor community that we're both a part of, I was very hesitant. I had my camera off. I really didn't share anything. I was just listening in, kind of creeping in the background per se. And and there just came a point where I was like, you know what? Here's people that I recognize on these calls that are action takers, right? I started to identify who on these calls I wanted to reach out to proactively and try to build a relationship with. But in order for me to build this relationship, I needed to put myself a little bit more out there.
hmm
And I started with small, simple steps, right? I started to just turn on my camera on Zoom meetings. Like, I know it sounds so simple, but that's one thing I did, right? Then the second thing I did is I started to make comments in the post, like as we're on Zoom calls, I would just say, "Hey, I really like what you said, Paul. Great message, thank you," right? And just kind of get a little bit more visible with each step. Turning my camera, making comments, then the third thing I started doing is I started to actually friend them on social media platforms, follow them, and to your point, comment there, right? And I started to do that organic approach rather than just sending you a direct message, hey, Paul, I want to connect with you. I did a little bit more of those soft touches
hmm
to build a relationship. So you were visible, like I was visible to you to a certain degree, right? And then after I started doing that for a couple of weeks, then I would send a direct message or on a call, send a direct message on that Zoom and say, hey, I love what you're doing. I love your message. I'd love to reach out and get to know you a little bit better and learn about your journey. And because I had these soft touches, right, these soft engagements, it was easier for them to then accept an actual invitation.
yeah.
And in the world of marketing, they say 7 to 14 impressions before somebody takes action. And so I wanted to make sure that I had these impressions in place prior to just direct cold outreach.
No, that's awesome. And like you stepped up, like you weren't as visible at first. You said you built your way up to being comfortable there. And that leads me into this. I mean, what are you doing today? I mean, you're doing a lot with the visibility. So where can everybody find you? Where can people
Yeah,
go hang out with you for free? So,
yeah, you bet. As far as visibility, I'm kind of running Zoom for a mentorship program. I'm also hosting on podcasts for the same program in the Get Creative space.
yep.
And really the platform that people can find me the most and active on is Instagram. My
Okay.
Instagram is Keola_Keala. And one key tip that I would share, because we're talking about networking, we're talking about building connections, right, Paul? Just one last thing, and this is kind of what I use as my secret sauce to connections. I call it the 3-2-1 connection method. Whether it's online or in person, I follow this 3-2-1 connection method. And what it means is If I was to reach out or we were to connect online or in person, within 3 days of that first connection, I would send you a message. So that's the three. Within 3 days of initial contact, I would send you a message.
Okay.
Within 2 weeks from that first message I send you, I would have a follow-up. And then, so that's three, two, and one is from that point moving forward, Paul, at least once a month, you would get some form of connection from me, whether that's a comment on Facebook or Instagram, whether that's a like, an email, or a text. I would always keep that fresh once a month. And so I would continue to nurture relationships with that 3-2-1 connection method.
Okay. How do you track that to make sure you're doing that with everybody and on your timeline?
Good question. So I'm pretty old school as far as how I operate some certain things, but I have a Excel format that I utilize. I haven't necessarily implemented into a CRM that I have functioning with that 3-2-1 method. I just kind of go through and move them manually
Okay.
currently.
And realistically, CRMs, they take time to set up. You could do all that in Excel. I mean, I don't know what you've been doing, but I've went into CRMs, tried multiple, and spent a bunch of money, and I'm back in, Excel spreadsheets or Google Sheets. So,
Yeah, right now I'm at a point in my journey where I'm testing CRMs right now. And so that's why I'm still utilizing my proven method of Excel instead of
yeah,
just jumping over.
awesome. All right. Well, before I let you go, is there anything else that you want to leave my guests with?
I would just say, guys who are listening in, continue to go like and follow Paul's podcast. He brings people that are even better than I am, sharing so many insights and knowledge for you that really the goal is to get you unstuck from where you're at,
Mhm.
right? And so it's about taking the next step in front of you, not worrying about the 10 steps ahead. Too many people get caught in analysis paralysis and they overthink what's down the road rather than it doesn't matter the mile ahead. What matters is the next step in front of me. And so if you guys want to get unstuck, take that next step, keep listening to Paul's podcast.
Thanks, Keola. And I'll throw all the information that you sent as ways to contact you in the description of this video as well. Thanks for coming on.
Awesome. Thank you.